Hi everyone. Let's take some time to discuss some of the most important points from the syllabus. Now, I'm not going to go over everything, but every word in the syllabus applies to you personally, so you need to study the syllabus in full. On the Canvas page, I asked that you print the syllabus out so that you can refer to it as we go through it in this presentation. So you should have a copy of it to follow along as you view this. This is what I look like, more or less. I tend to wear glasses all the time now, and right now my hair is a little shorter, but it kind of changes a lot. Now, I don't usually include pictures of myself in videos, so you're not going to be watching me all the time. I figure that you have more important things to look at than me, and I'm not attractive enough to be ornamental, frankly. But I know that it's good to have a face to go with the voice. So this is pretty much what I look like. And if you want to picture somebody talking to you in these presentations, that's the face you can more or less picture. My name is Professor Deb Okey, but call me Deb. I'm not that formal a person. And I hope that we get to know each other well enough that we're on a first name basis. But if you aren't comfortable calling a professor by her first name, either Professor Okey or Professor Deb is fine. But I was never Miss Okey, and thank God I am no longer Mrs. Okey, so neither of those really work very well. Now, I'd like you to contact me whenever you have any questions, and the syllabus does include contact information for my office. But I have health problems, and because of my health, I'm not going to be on campus at all some semesters. And even when I am, I'm only on campus 2 days a week at best. But I check my email every day, several times a day actually, so the best way to make sure that you get in touch with me and get an answer from me as quickly as possible is via email. Now, you're going to hear this repeated again and again all semester. As a matter of fact, I've probably already sent you some emails that say it, but it's very important, okay? You have to email me from an account other than Canvas. You can use a Gmail account, a Yahoo account, an iCloud account, whatever you use every day as your typical email. And then send your emails to debra.okey@csn.edu. That address is on the home page of Canvas. It is, of course, on the syllabus. It's at the end of every video you watch, and it's in most of the emails I send to the full class, so you shouldn't have any problems finding my email address. I check my email account and send emails several times a day, every day, Sunday through Saturday, including holidays and Thanksgiving and spring breaks. And the first thing I do every time I go to my email account is get back to students who have emailed me. So you are going to need to check your email every day because, as we'll discuss shortly, you sometimes need to reply within 24 hours. If you don't check your email every day, well, everyone makes choices, and we all reap both the benefits and consequences of the choices we make. Okay? So enough said. Everyone who takes English 100 at CSN should learn the same skills, more or less. So the department has set criteria that every student has to meet no matter whom they take the class from or whether they take it live or online. Let's spend a few minutes going through the requirements that the department has set in order for you to pass the class. The first one is identify purpose, audience, and rhetorical situation. Well, the purpose and rhetorical situation will be defined for you for the papers that we write. The purpose for the 2 papers we write is to inform readers about a topic, as opposed to trying to take them to adopt one position over another. And the rhetorical situation is that you are writing a formal academic paper to be distributed to professors, graduate students, and upper-level undergraduate students in a specific academic discipline. I'll provide the discipline for the first paper, and for the second, you'll choose an academic discipline that's appropriate to your topic. And we'll talk about how to do that. The next requirement is read and analyze academic sources. Well, both papers are research papers, and since you can't use websites as sources, you will be reading and analyzing academic sources in order to write the papers. So that's how we'll meet that criteria. Use a process approach to compose complete, coherent, and well-developed thesis-driven essays. Well, you're going to be required to submit several pre-writing assignments for each of the two papers, and if you don't submit them, you can't submit the paper, which means you can't pass the class. And those pre-writing assignments will document that you used a process approach to write the paper. And we're also going to learn to write a thesis statement, and each of the two papers has to include a thesis statement to earn a passing grade. So you shouldn't have any problems meeting that criteria if you learn what's taught in the course. Locate, evaluate, and integrate information from sources. Well, since both papers are research papers, you're obviously going to meet that requirement as you conduct your research, and your papers will demonstrate how well you've met the requirement. Employ appropriate documentation to support research-based essays. Now, this is the requirement the students have problems meeting, and that really doesn't make any sense to me. All you have to do to use documentation properly is look up a sample on a website that I provide the links to and copy the format exactly. Now, I know students know how to copy, so it's beyond me why students have so much trouble with this. Actually, I guess it's not. The students try to take shortcuts by copying documentation off of articles of the library website. Don't do that. They were never right to begin with, and MLA completely changed its formats in spring 2016, so now the vast majority of the provided documentation is completely wrong. Do it the way I teach you to do it, and you won't have any problems. Do it some other way, and you might not be able to pass the class because your papers won't demonstrate that you've learned how to document correctly. And as you see right here, that's a department requirement. So do it the way I teach you to do it. Control conventions of language mechanics in MLA format. Okay, this refers mainly to wording, grammar, and page format. Now, I'm going to teach you how to set up MLA paper format in Microsoft Word before you need to know how to do it. And we'll also cover 4 grammar units that should review what you were taught in grade school and high school. If you have significant problems with wording, I urge you to contact the advising and coaching office on the campus nearest you to arrange to work with a tutor. And it's a good idea for everyone to work with the Writing Center, because they can help you with those concerns as well as any concern connected to writing a paper. Okay, let's talk about materials of instruction. There's no textbook for this class. All the materials you need can be accessed from the Canvas website, but there are other materials that you definitely need. Most importantly, you need to use a jump disk or USB drive or flash drive or thumb drive or whatever you want to call those little external drives. And you need to back up and save all of your work to that drive. You want to back up everything that you do for this course on that drive. The 9 a.m. Saturday deadlines are absolute deadlines. And if you have everything backed up on an external disk, you should be able to submit the assignments on time, even if your computer or your home internet access isn't working. Everything you do for this class will be in Microsoft Word, which is available on every computer on all CSN campuses and other places like public library computers and computers at businesses such as some of the FedEx stores or Office Depot. Since I'm telling you from the very beginning to back up everything in case your computer crashes, my computer or internet crashed is not an excuse for submitting work late, because you should have everything backed up on a jump disk and you should be able to get to another computer to submit the work if your computer crashes. Materials for taking notes. and collecting handouts and so forth. You absolutely want to take notes on every video because I expect the papers you submit to demonstrate that you've learned what was taught in this course. Turning in any old paper on the approved topic just won't cut it. We will be learning to write papers exclusively for academic audiences, and you'll need to rely on all the information in the videos to write the papers correctly. There's really no way you can do that if you don't take notes, unless you listen to each video to the point that you have them all memorized, and that would be a huge waste of time. So you do need to take notes. Daily access to a reliable full computer, not a cell phone or a tablet, that you can use to work on the course. Since you chose to take this class online, I assume you have reliable access to a computer and are comfortable working with it. There's no way you can usefully view these videos on a tiny cell phone or even a tablet screen, and you certainly can't write papers on them in MLA format. I know it seems silly to even list this since you obviously have a computer if you're taking an online class, but it's better to be clear about the expectation than to assume it. You know what they say, but we do when we assume, right? Access to the internet and Microsoft Word, both of which are available on campus. Again, obviously you have internet access since you're taking an online course. You also have to have access to Microsoft Word since everything you submit has to be in Microsoft Word. Now, I'm not saying you have to go out right now and buy Microsoft Office. You can write the papers any way you want to and then take them into campus and type them up in Microsoft Word if you need to. But you do need to have access to that program in some way or the other. Resources for printing out materials and making copies. Now, everything in this class is submitted online, so how often you need to produce a physical printout is usually up to you. But there might be some circumstances in which you need a physical copy, like you should have one right now as we're going through the syllabus. Now, it doesn't happen too often, but you never know what's going to come up. Now, there are printers on all of the campuses, and students are supplied with a card, I think, that provides a certain amount of money that you can spend to print out pages and make copies. And if you can't get into a campus, make sure you know of another way to access a printer and copier, just in case you need it. I'm not necessarily saying that you will, but just in case you need one, make sure you know how you can get to a printer and a copier. Other materials as required for completion of assignments. To tell you the truth, I've been teaching this course and courses like it for over 20 years, and I think I've listed everything you need. But you never know. Something might come up, or you might have some kind of a special circumstance, or you might be writing on the second paper on a topic of your choice that requires something extra. So I throw this in there just to let you know that you need to make sure that you have whatever you need in order to complete the assignments. Now, we've talked about department requirements, so let's talk specifically about the types of assignments you'll be doing and how they will be affecting your grade. Okay, first there's a large category that's called quizzes and homework assignments, and it's worth 20% of your course grade. Everything we do for this course, except the 2 papers, will be included in this grading category. While we're working on paper 1, there will be several quizzes every week. They will all be either 5 or 10 multiple choice and true-false questions, and you will complete them on Canvas. Now, you can access each quiz only one time, and you'll have 10 minutes to complete the 5-question quizzes and 20 minutes to complete the 10-question quizzes. In other words, you'll have about 2 minutes for each question. If you've truly studied all the material instead of just letting it flow over you, you should have no problems completing the quizzes. But since you can access the quizzes only once, and you will never have time to review notes while you're taking the quiz, you must make sure that you know all the material before you click on the link to the quizzes. All the quizzes are due at 9 a.m. on Saturday of the week that they're assigned. The quiz shuts down at exactly 9 a.m., so it's impossible for you to do them late. Quizzes can't be made up unless you have a documented emergency that makes it physically impossible for you to use a computer throughout the week of an assignment. Now, the homework assignments are more important in many cases and in many ways. Other than the quizzes, the assignments will mainly be pre-writing pieces, and students who don't submit the pre-writing can't submit the paper, and that means they can't pass the class. For paper 1, those pre-writing assignments that you absolutely must submit are the initial research source form, postings to discussion boards that summarize your research, a scratch outline with sources, and a draft of the paper with comments from Smart Thinking, or if you have access to a scanner, the CSN Writing Center. Even if you don't turn those assignments in on time and earn a 0 on them, you have to turn them in before the paper is due. There are only 2 pre-writing assignments for paper 2, the initial research source form and the scratch outline. And don't worry if you don't know what those are. We're going to go over how to complete the assignments. I'll even demonstrate how to do them. So you shouldn't have any problems completing them if you take notes on the videos and follow instructions. Now, there are 2 important reasons that not submitting the pre-writing will essentially lead to an F in the class. First, we saw that the department requires that you use a process to write the papers, meaning you don't sit down and do them all at one time. That's how really poor papers are written, and one of the purposes of this class is to teach you to not write papers that way. So I need those pre-writing assignments to document that you met that departmental requirement. But there's another reason for the pre-writing too. It's so easy for students, both in live and online classes, to get someone else to write a paper for them. But it's much more difficult to get someone to turn in materials that prepare to write the paper that are due on due dates spread throughout the course of a semester. Now, I know that you're going to do your share of the work. You're going to do your own work. I'm sure of that. But some students might not. And it wouldn't be fair to you to let someone else get an English major, for example, to write their papers and end up with a higher grade than you do when you actually did all your own work, right? So you see, the pre-writing requirements that have to be done in a very specific way that only my students are taught helps to keep other people from devaluing your hard work by cheating. The final type of work included in this category is posting to discussion boards. Because of how I conduct this class, we don't use discussion boards that much. But when we do, you are required to post to them. You'll be told exactly what you need to cover and how and when you have to do it. Now, as you probably can see by now, I won't ask you to do anything that I don't specifically teach you how to do. Some of the terms I've used in talking about this probably don't mean anything to you right now, but don't panic. I'll give you very specific details on what you need to do before you're expected to be able to do it, and in most cases, I'll even demonstrate exactly how to do it and provide samples of how students have done it in the past. All of those types of assignments, which is basically everything except the final papers for the 2 papers, will be averaged together, and that grade is 20% of your course grade. The completed paper 1 is worth 40% of your course grade, and completed paper 2 is worth 40% of your course grade. So, each of the 2 papers you write will be 40% of the course grade. That might seem like a lot, but this is a writing class, so most of the grade should be based on your writing, right? Now, you'll know by the end of this week exactly what I expect in papers. You might not know what all the terms mean at this point, but you will before the paper is due. On this week's assignment list, you will find a rubric that lists the point I grade, and a checklist that provides very, very detailed information on what I specifically look for. In addition, you'll see 2 sample papers that earned an A in past semesters. The sample papers have marginal notes that point out what the students did well to help you see what I expect in your papers. The biggest mistake that most people make in this class is not studying any of those materials because there are no quizzes on them and they aren't specifically assigned. No, there are no quizzes and they aren't specifically assigned, but if you don't read them, chances are pretty good that your papers are going to earn lower grades than they would earn if you worked with them. But if you go through these materials now and review them often while you're working on your paper, you'll know exactly what I'm looking for, and you'll know when you need to ask questions because you don't understand how to do it. Yes, it takes time to work with them. But students who do it find it much easier to confidently turn in a paper that they know will earn a decent grade, and they usually do earn decent grades. But, use them or don't use them. But if you don't use them, well, as we've already noted, actions have consequences for all of us. Now, each of the papers must be 5 to 7 pages long, plus the works cited page, which is what the bibliography is called in MLA. The works cited page is not included in the 5 to 7 pages. If you turn in 4 pages of writing plus the works cited page, you will have failed to meet paper requirements, which could have a devastating effect on your grade. Now, since you have to earn a C to pass composition, a D is not a passing grade in composition classes, students who earn a D or an F on one of the papers will be able to revise it, but they'll only have about a week to do it. You can't turn in a crappy first paper assuming that you'll have the rest of the semester to do the paper. You won't. One of the reasons you want to check your email every day, by the way, is because I return papers as I grade them, and you want to give yourself as much time as you can to revise those papers if you earn a failing grade. All of the papers, as well as all the homework assignments, have to be submitted through Canvas and Microsoft Word. Don't submit them as PDF documents or in any other word processing program. I have to be able to open them in Microsoft Word, not in a text program that doesn't retain MLA formatting, or in PDF, which doesn't provide a good way for me to make comments on the homework. They have to be in Microsoft Word and nothing else. Now, let me tell you something else. I do realize that things can get lost in technology. So here's what I do. I have to download all of the assigned work at the same time. That's how Canvas does it. I can't even check to see who's turned in the work without downloading all of it. Usually, I download the work on the Saturday that it's due, but sometimes I'm tied up with other things on Saturday, and I might not get to it for a few days. When I download the work, I check to see whom I didn't receive the work from, and which documents I can't open in Microsoft Word. And if your work falls into either of those two categories, I will email you and give you exactly 24 hours from the time I send the email to email me the assignment in Microsoft Word. If the work is done by the deadline and just got lost in the technology, 24 hours gives you plenty of time to email me the work if you check your email every day, as I'm telling you right now you should do. If I don't receive the work within that 24 hours, and I will give you a very specific time in the email I send you, so you won't have to wonder about what time I'm talking about, well, it will earn a 0. If it's one of the 2 major papers, you can't pass the class if you don't submit the paper on time. Now, think of it this way. It takes maybe, 2 seconds to check your email? And if passing this course isn't worth 2 seconds a day, well, that's your choice and I respect it. But actions have consequences, right? Finally, as stated in bold, underlined italics, highlighted in yellow on the syllabus, any student who does not submit both of the 2 major papers by deadline cannot pass English 100. So as we've noticed, you have to submit all of the pre-writing for each paper or you can't submit the paper. And anyone who doesn't submit both papers by their due dates can't pass English 100. Okay, We'll finish up this discussion by looking at some of the course policies. Some of them I won't discuss, and others I'll discuss in depth, but all of them apply to you personally, so make sure that you study all of them. The first thing that we have on the syllabus is the CSN policy for students with disabilities. You can study that for yourself, but there is one thing I need to emphasize. Some disabilities allow students to have more time to take quizzes. Now, if the Disability Resource Center gives you a form stating that you are to have more time for quizzes, I'll set up the quizzes so you have twice as much time to complete them. But I can't do that for you until you send me the DRC form, and it isn't retroactive. So if you take this week's quizzes with less time than you're actually entitled to because you haven't sent me the form, you get whatever grade you earned when you took the quiz without the extra time. DRC accommodations are not retroactive. So if you have a documented disability, especially one that allows you longer time for quizzes, you need to get the form from the DRC and email it to me as an attachment from an account other than Canvas, of course, to deborah.okey@csn.edu. Now, if you send it through me through Canvas email, I won't get it, so I won't be giving you the extra time you need. So make sure you don't use Canvas email. The Writing Center policy. There's some information in the syllabus about the Writing Center, but mainly I urge you to work with them early and often. And if you have access to a scanner, I urge you to take what will be called the Smart Thinking draft, the draft that you have to turn in with comments. I urge you to take it to the Writing Center and submit that with their comments instead of using Smart Thinking. Smart Thinking is okay. But I work for both organizations, and the Writing Center is just better. So if you can get access to a scanner in any way, and there are some on campus actually, I recommend working with the Writing Center instead of Smart Thinking. On the syllabus, I provided a link to the Student Code of Conduct because students need to be familiar with it, and it can be kind of tough to find those things on the CSN website. Make sure you study it whenever you can because the college will apply that to you. Now, the college has an academic integrity policy that establishes pretty much how to deal with students who cheat. For this course, you mainly have to avoid plagiarism. Now, we're going to spend a considerable amount of time talking about how to do that, and it's probably the most important thing you'll learn this semester. But the syllabus provides a summary list of how to do it. Basically, don't have someone else write your paper, and don't buy a paper from the internet. To be honest with you, it would be almost impossible to find a paper that meets the criteria that's required because all of your sources have to come from a CSN database, and you can't use general web pages. Now, one of the reasons that professors set very specific requirements for papers these days and limit the topics is because the internet has made it so easy to cheat if we don't. You also, moving on from not buying a paper, you have to put everything in a paper in your own words in order to avoid plagiarism. And you have to include an in-text citation for everything you state in a paper, not just for direct quotes. In-text citations give credit for ideas, not just words. And since everything in your paper has to come from an outside source, and in-text citations don't carry over from one paragraph to another, you should have at least one in-text citation, and sometimes more, in every paragraph. If what you say in your introduction, conclusion, and transitional paragraphs is discussed elsewhere in your paper, and you have a citation there, you might not need a citation in the introduction, conclusion, and transitions. Otherwise, every paragraph will need at least one in-text citation, or that information is plagiarized. And then, of course, you also need to cite every source that you use in the paper, and only the sources you use in the paper, on the Works Cited page. That's another important aspect of avoiding plagiarism. Now, Plagiarism of any kind technically earns a 0 for a paper, and it could result in your being called before a disciplinary board. I have never done that, and I really don't see much of a possibility that I would do it, but some professors will. And some professors are very, very, very picky about this documentation thing, which is why we spend so much time learning it and why it's required by the department. Because they expect you to they expect you to do it in order to pass, but they're not going to teach you how to do it. We do that. That's why you have to take this class before you can take classes that you need to write papers in. So make sure you learn how to do it so that you won't be called before a disciplinary board by some professor who's really, really picky. And if you learn the skills taught in this class and follow instructions, you won't have any problems with plagiarism. Course discussion topics. Yeah, you should study this policy at some point. With the topics we're writing on, I don't think this will be much of an issue, but, it's kind of hard to know what will turn up on discussion boards sometimes. In the withdrawal policy, the important thing about the withdrawal policy that you need to make a note of is the last day to withdraw, which is there on the syllabus, and it's also listed on the Canvas homepage. Also, you need to know that there isn't any mechanism available that allows professors to withdraw students from classes. You have to find out how to withdraw from classes and do it yourself. You won't be withdrawn if you just stop participating. You'll earn an F. And when professors record a grade of an F, we have to list the date that the student last participated, which for this class would be the last Saturday that you did any work. Now, there's a secret date every semester, and professors are never told what it is. That if students stop participating before that date and they got financial aid, they have to pay back the financial aid. Now, I just thought you should know that because some people are very surprised when the government wants back the money that they gave the student to take a class that the student didn't stay in long enough to deserve the money. Incompletes. Incompletes are possible, but only under very specific circumstances, and they're rarely granted. In order to be eligible to even be considered for an incomplete, you yourself, not a member of your family, has to have a documented serious illness or a lengthy hospitalization or spend significant time in jail. In other words, it has to be impossible for you to use a computer. Also, those things have to occur after the last day to withdraw, because if they happen before the last day to withdraw, you should just drop the class rather than take an incomplete. And then finally, you have to have been earning a C or above on the last day to withdraw to be considered for an incomplete. If you were failing the course at that point, before you became ill, you would probably have even more problems passing it after you become ill. Oh, I also should mention that students must earn at least a C to pass composition classes. I mentioned that before, but I need to mention it again. A D isn't a passing grade in composition. So, if you meet all of those criteria, you may request an incomplete, and whether you get one is decided on a case-by-case basis. Also, we have to agree to a contract that specifies exactly what you have to do and the dates that you will have it done by. That contract goes to the department, and if your work isn't finished by the date you state it will be, the I grade changes to an F. Since many students who manage to talk their way into an incomplete don't ever do the work, incompletes are really very rare. Late work in using Microsoft Word. Now, this policy basically states in writing what we've already discussed in other sections where it isn't actually written down in the syllabus. I don't accept late work unless you have some extraordinary circumstance that makes it physically impossible for you to access any computer. You yourself, not someone in your family, pretty much have to be so ill that you aren't conscious and functioning. You have to be in the hospital or you have to be in jail in order not to have access to a computer these days. And you need to provide documentation for that. Now, the reason for this is that for grades to be fair, everyone has to have the same amount of time to do the work. I treat all students exactly the same, and I have to have documentation anytime I treat a student differently than I treat others, such as by accepting your work late. Now, that rule should be true in every class because it's what the college expects. It kind of helps prevent there being professors out there who give higher grades to people with, oh, I don't know, purple hair, 6 eyes, 4 legs, or whatever demographic difference might exist between two people. We've already talked about the MS Word thing in some depth already, and it's explained in writing in this section of the syllabus. Review the information in the syllabus as well as what we've discussed. The last policy deals with technology, and it's pretty important. First, you need to be aware of portions of Canvas that you need to ignore. First, of course, is the email program, as we've talked about and will continue to mention several times a week, okay? Ignore it at least in terms of emailing me. I think you can email each other through it, and I don't care about that. But I don't use Canvas email. Anytime you contact me, email me from an account other than Canvas. Also, ignore anything on those stupid to-do lists that Canvas puts together, at least anything connected to this class. I don't even know where Canvas gets those due dates, and the due dates of the links are often wrong. In fact, they're wrong as often as they are right. And professors don't even get to see the to-do list, so we can't fix them. The due dates for everything are listed in the table on the home page and on the weekly assignment lists. All the links you need to use to turn in assignments are on those weekly assignment lists. If you use that to-do list to do anything at all, and you miss a due date because of it, well, working with the to-do list, even though I told you not to, is your choice. And as we've talked about, choices and actions have consequences for all of us throughout our lives, right? Now, I frequently send emails to the entire class. Those emails, as well as any emails I send to you personally, such as graded papers, will be sent to the address that you have listed on my CSN. So it's very important that you make sure that that email address is an address that you check every day. If you change email accounts, you need to do 2 things. First, you need to change the address on my CSN. Professors can't do that for you. Second, you have to send me an email from an account other than Canvas with your new email address listed in it. I keep a separate list of student email addresses so I don't have to go and look up the addresses on my CSN every time I want to contact you. So you need to send me your new email address so that I can update my list. Both of those have to be updated. The address on my CSN and the address that I have on my list to make sure that you receive all the information you need. Now, emails are the only way that I have to talk to you guys specifically and give you specific information. So you need to read every word of every email because once I've sent an email, I assume that students know whatever is in it. It's part of the class. So always make sure that you read the emails thoroughly. Now, and as we've already discussed, you need to check your email every day, Sunday through Saturday, including Thanksgiving and spring breaks. I work 7 days a week while school is in session, as most professors have to, and I don't delay in emailing students important information because, to be frank, I'm afraid I'll forget to do it. So I email students when something occurs that needs to be addressed. And you need to check your email every day. Because let's say, for example, that I download the papers on Saturday and I didn't get one from you. You will be given a deadline by sometime Sunday to email me that paper. Certainly, if the second paper is often due on the Saturday before spring break. And I definitely will be grading papers during spring break if that's true. So you definitely need to check your email during spring break in case I didn't get your paper, because if I didn't get your paper and you don't email it to me, well, then you can't pass the class. Then we get to the very bottom of the syllabus, which has the standard clause stating that I can amend the syllabus if I need to. And there's a very generalized kind of a schedule of what we have to cover. I put that on there because we're required to. It doesn't really give you any information that's very useful. A detailed schedule of what you're going to be doing and when it's due is on the home page of Canvas. Okay. So that's basically what that says. That there's a summary of a tentative course schedule. Okay, that's all I have for you on the syllabus. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I hope it helps clarify for you what's expected of you in the course. And if you have any questions or you need clarification on anything, please email me from an account other than Canvas at deborah.okey@csn.edu. Have a fantastic day and try to get some time to enjoy yourself and relax a little bit. We'll talk again soon.